Good morning, ladies. Welcome to Meditative Monday. My name is Nardine Staroverov, and today we're going to talk a little bit about isolation and how it impacts or how it's impacting a lot of us. So, as human beings, we were made to be in relationships. We are relational as God is relational, and we were made to be part of a larger community. And being in isolation, we really don't flourish in isolation. We flourish in community. However, due to physical distancing, we've been isolated from our friends, from our family, from our church community, and we find ourselves not really doing the things that brings us meaning and the things that brings us joy. So one of the things that we can see that happens with physical isolation is that we can start feeling certain feelings of depression. It can result in depressive feelings. And what I'm talking about is really not clinical depression, because obviously that's so different. Clinical depression is really a major mood disorder that results in persistent sadness and irritability and not really enjoying the things that you enjoy. Activities that you previously enjoyed, but really where it's impacting your daily function. And obviously some of you may be dealing with that, and that's really difficult because I'm sure it's exacerbated some of your depressive symptoms, and especially when you have had coping mechanisms that you were able to deal with outside of isolation, like going to the gym or meeting up with friends, where some of those things were your coping mechanism, and having to lose this can be really difficult, and finding yourself trying to figure out other ways to cope. But I digress. So what I really want to focus on is that type of depressive feelings that can come and go. So what does it look like? What are some of the signs of these type of depressive feelings? It can look like a lack of motivation, not really wanting to do certain things on certain days, and you can find yourself withdrawing. And I think there's a difference between withdrawing yourself and isolating. There's a difference between withdrawing and social distancing. I think withdrawing is more like when you are just sort of like not engaging with anyone, not wanting to engage with anyone outside of probably your household. And obviously social distancing is about being safe and healthy, but still having the desire to connect with other people. And the other thing is, if you find yourself self-medicating, whether it's consuming alcohol or binge eating, binge watching Netflix, there are a host of unhealthy patterns that we can find ourselves falling in. And the third one is more, if you find yourself feeling more irritable and angry, you may find yourself like snapping at your kids, or having a little bit more conflict with your spouse, and just being annoyed overall about things that would normally be a bother to you. Those are certainly things that can be a sign that you might be experiencing some of those depressive feelings. So how can we reset ourselves? How can we re-anchor ourselves when we do notice some of these symptoms, some of these behaviors happening? One of the things that I would say, the first thing is to grieve. Yes, grieve. Grief is actually a appropriate emotion for a lot of us to feel at this point in time. We can grieve the fact that our normal routines are gone. They are no longer. And we have to find ways to implement new routines, and the things that we previously did that brought us joy are no longer present. And so it's okay to acknowledge those things and to grieve them. And for some, it may be the fact that you may have had a sick family member, or friends, extended friends who have had deaths in their family, and you're unable to mourn and grieve with them. Those are things that we have to stop and really acknowledge, that there's a lot of us who are grieving the loss of so many things. And when we avoid those things, it can actually exacerbate that depressive feelings, because we're not really dealing with it, with all these emotions, with all the things that we're maybe pushing down. But grieving is probably the first step we should really take in dealing with some of these overwhelming thoughts and emotion that we may have. And the second one is to practice acceptance. When we focus on things that are beyond our control, it can give way to increased feelings of fear, sadness. But when we acknowledge that things are not in our control and we can't change them, it helps us to really focus on the things that we can change. So what are some of those things that we can change? One, it's our thoughts. We can definitely work on changing our thought patterns, because sometimes that's where it starts. That depressive feelings start when we start thinking negatively, and we go down that spiral, and it can lead us into those feelings of depression. So if we can take a hold of our thoughts and really try to be intentional about with doing things that we know that are positive behaviors. For example, if you know that walking or showering will increase or elevate your mood, one of the things you can do is to resist maybe that thought that says, I don't feel like it. You can tell, like you know when you have a thought and say, I should really take a shower, I should really go for a walk, and you find yourself saying, well, I don't really feel like it. What you can do is start being intentional. Push yourself to actually do that behavior, whether it's getting up and taking a shower or going for a walk. And you will find that when you do engage in these activities, that it will shift your thinking, it will shift your mood a bit. And the second one is to set new routine. I say work with what you got, honestly, because you may be balancing distance learning and working and so many other things, and whatever it is that you have in your plate, try to find what your new routine is, and try to make it work for yourself, for you and your family, because I think that and having a routine, it kind of gives us something to work with. It gives us a template, and it helps us to kind of move through the days, as the days are so fluid. It helps us to have something that's tangible to hold on to, at least. And self-care is huge. I know I mentioned having to wake up and get dressed. I think that's such a huge piece. If we can that into our routine, like getting dressed accordingly, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's helping the kids with their distance learning or you're going to work in the home, having that be part of your routine is such an important piece. And also trying to figure out ways to integrate any type of physical activity in there that you can get in, whether it's walking or doing some sort of like yoga at home, and eating well, sleeping well, and drinking lots of water. Those things are so important in terms of our self-care. One of the things for me, I find that's really helpful when I find myself falling into these ruts, because I can get up in the morning. I remember this past Monday when the kids went back after spring break for distance learning, like that Monday I found it really difficult to really be motivated. I didn't really want to do anything. I wanted to just sit on the couch. I really had to push myself to help the kids. I'm like, I didn't want to do anything. But I think one of the things that works for me is that when there's a sunny day, I try to soak up the sun as much as possible. That, for me, is like my therapy. Sun and laughter are my therapy. So, if it's not a sunny day, my husband and I will after putting the kids down, we'll watch a comedy show. We'll watch some silly show that can just make me laugh, or I'll talk to a friend on the phone and just laugh, because I think for me that I know the way that I cope. I know that for me will ward off any type of depressive feelings when I do find them coming on, and pushing myself out of that place so that I can re-engage, reset, re-anchor myself. And the other one is staying connected. Staying connected is so important when we are isolated, and having social media right now is such a great way to stay connected. But I think one thing is really important to mention is that for us to really use social media effectively, I think a lot of us have this habit of scrolling mindfully through social media and not really getting much out of it. I think that if we are reading, certain posts that are meaningful, or that somebody wrote, and just taking the time to read it or even comment on the post, and as a way of connecting with other people, as a way of maybe giving some type of encouragement to someone else, I think that's really important and a great way to utilize social media. And even participating in some sort of group. This is probably the only time we'll have so much downtime in our hands, but so I think that it's helpful to kind of engage in something, whether it's like a cooking group online or knitting group. Those are the ways that we can really truly use social media effectively. And the other one is phone calls and video chats. Those are great ways to connect with friends and family. And I think sometimes when we're in that place where we're feeling a little bit down, we can be waiting on someone else to make the call, to take the initiative, to call us. I think just pushing yourself beyond your own comfort zone and call someone, give somebody, encourage someone else instead of waiting for that, for someone else to call you. And lastly is to be able to practice gratitude. Being able to wake up and seeing all the good things, even though a lot of us are in different places when it comes to this. Even talking about having depressive feelings, it varies from one person to another. The symptoms vary, and so at the same time, we all have a lot of things that we can be grateful for. So even having that as part of our routine, waking up or even in the evening, whatever works for you, whether it's you verbalizing it to yourself or even writing it down, journaling it, it's even more for me, I should say. It's really powerful because I think when we journal, if we have things in our mind, it actually helps us to ground our thoughts. Because when we are feeling depressed or anxious, having the simple act of writing our thoughts is very grounding, and it helps us to focus and be in that rational brain space, and it really can elevate our mood in a great way. So I hope those tips really helped. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do, there is an app called Headspace. If you are interested in any type of meditation or any type of mindful exercises, you can check out Headspace, and it's a great way to kind of help you also to keep grounded. So I hope that you can take advantage of the sunny days, and I hope you can be able to practice some of those skills when you do realize that you are in that space. You can really learn how to reset and re-anchor yourself. Have a great week. Bye-bye.